These stories are first-hand accounts shared by Reddit users, detailing unsettling real-life encounters that left lasting impressions. Each narrative provides a chilling glimpse into moments of danger, survival, and eerie coincidences that might make you rethink your surroundings. Disclaimer: these accounts were originally published by Reddit users and are presented as personal experiences. While they are described as true events, their accuracy relies on the original storytellers. The details shared here are intended for awareness and cautionary purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised. Story 1. Conflict is only human. I remember when it happened. November 1963. It was quick. Just a bullet through the head. A guy ran up to me while I was in a bad part of town and put a gun to my head and asked for my wallet. I suppose he thought I was going for a weapon, since after I reached into my jacket to grab it, everything flashed. When in my left then it was all nothing. But it wasn't the nothing I was expecting. Instead of a complete lack of existence and sensation, I was completely aware. But I couldn't feel myself. My body, whatever it was just floating in the void. Took me a second to remember where I had been before and where I was now, but afterwards I pieced together pretty quick that I had been shot and killed. But it was odd. I didn't feel anything. Not sadness. Not anger. Nothing. It was like I didn't care, but somehow even beyond it. And that feeling extended to the entire void, this great nothingness I found myself in. It was a lack of existence itself, and yet I myself existed. So where exactly was I? I had a lot of time to think about that question, about everything from my entire life down there in our burning world. And I've thought, for the first time, without the burden of emotion. It clouds our judgment more than we think it does. It's all just so needless. All the violence, the pain and suffering that we've inflicted upon this sacred soil of ours and on each other and on ourselves. We pass the starving on the grounds we walk and leave them to wither. We no longer outstretch our hands to one another. We are cold and cynical. And it's all so needless. There simply doesn't exist a reason why we cannot all be in unison and in peace. But we are just so very simple. So very basic. So very human. We are slaves to our bodies and base instincts. To all the desire and greed that permeates us down to the very bones of our species. It's all so needless. Then I heard it. And felt it. I saw it. And knew it all at once. And it was terrible. It was a stark howl. It was cold and painful. It was pure evil and destruction. It was the unmaking. Its maw erupted from the darkness as a singularity of shifting teeth, made in forms impossible to describe, a whirling pit of something I can only describe as the opposite of light and creation. Screams and wails trumpeted from its being, 1,000 souls being chewed and digested and devoured. Their pain erupted from it, and became my existence. And in its maw was something I never believed in. Something I spit on and dismissed, and treated like a parasite on the human psyche. Something I dreaded was real now. Creation. Devoured and swallowed by this great unmaker. It took the light and love, and siphoned it into the abyss before filling the vacuum with hate. It replaced passion with indifference and led our souls to dissolution. It took all that was and what could be and reduced it to waste. I know now in its presence, before I am devoured, that it was all real. The beauty of God and its unrequited love, a blanket and nest to and for all. We never got it quite right in the end. Never really understood it or embraced it. But I know it was there. And it was within all of us. Within every human eye. But it is there no longer, replaced by this great devourer. It has grown within them, taking root deep in their soul. It rots them from within with the venom of indifference, before they unleash it upon others with callosity. It is the spit on the homeless. Its children are starving in the street. It is our hate and violence, and its seeds are planted where we ripped life from the earth. It is the war and soot in the air that we breathe. It is the polluted skies and the oil in the sea. It is the pain and the suffering we have sown. And soon, it will be what we reap. Story 2. He knew my name, and I never told him. I live alone. That's important. It was fall of 2013. I had just moved into a cheap, quiet apartment in northern Illinois after finishing college. Nothing fancy, 1 bedroom, middle of nowhere, 4 units total. The kind of place you pick when you're broke and want to be left alone. My job back then was late nights at a 24-hour diner. I'd usually get home around 1:30, sometimes closer to 2 if I had to close up. That night started like any other. I remember it was cold. Not freezing yet, but sharp enough that your breath showed. I parked and noticed something immediately. My doormat was gone. Dumb thing to fixate on, right? But I remember thinking it was weird. Who steals a doormat? I stood there for a second, staring at the bare concrete outside my door. Then that feeling hit me. You ever get that sudden, primal wave that something's off? Like every hair on your neck is trying to whisper, you're not alone? That. I got inside fast. Locked the door. Triple-checked the deadbolt. Didn't even take off my shoes. I just stood there listening. Nothing. So I shook it off. Told myself I was overtired. Heated up leftovers, sat on the couch, TV low. Probably 20 minutes passed. Then came the knock. Not loud. Not urgent. But deliberate. 3 slow knocks. I froze. I wasn't expecting anyone. Especially not at 1:57 a.m. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. There was a man standing there. Hoodie pulled up. Face lowered so I couldn't see anything but his mouth and chin. No movement. Just standing. I said, because my dumb instincts kicked in, can I help you? He didn't answer. Then a second later he said, my full name. Like my full fucking name. First and last. No mistake. I didn't say anything. I just backed away from the door like it might explode. I grabbed the kitchen knife from the sink, turned every single light off, and crawled to the bedroom. My heart was beating so hard it hurt. I was whispering to the 911 operator when I heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. But not at the front door. My bedroom window. He had walked around the building. I didn't have curtains yet, just moved in, so I ducked below the window and held my breath. I didn't even want to blink too loud. The dispatcher kept asking if I was okay. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Eventually, I heard the cruiser pull in. By the time the cops got there, the guy was gone. But here's where it got worse. One of the officers walked back toward my door and said, was this under your mat? It was a folded piece of paper. Dirty. Wet from the concrete. On it, written in shaky pen was, "You're lucky I like to wait." I moved out 7 days later. I haven't lived alone since. And I still have no idea how he knew my name. Story 3. I watched my little brother's camcorder after he went missing. Now I'm not the same as when I watched it. Growing up in Guadalupe, I was never particularly fond of the big city. Everywhere I went, crowds followed me as if I were a celebrity. Waiting in lines, being forced to swim through crowds, it felt like hell. Luckily, 45 minutes away in Castle Creek was where my cousins, 2 male twins, Evan and Eli, lived in the forest. Every time we'd all go, it was like I had won the lottery. It was quiet, no long lines, and it felt like heaven. That fateful day, we went to their house so that my little brother, Jack, could film his 6th grade movie project for school. When we pulled into the driveway, Jack had practically teleported into their house so they could film the movie in their backyard. They had me be the camera guy for about 30 minutes until I went inside to get them some orange juice, as I was also completely out of breath from following them, my hands trembling from the amount of running I had to do to follow them. As I was getting the juice out of the fridge, I heard a blood-curdling scream. I ran outside where they were, but they were nowhere to be found. I ran inside to tell my parents, and they were frantic. We searched everywhere on their 5-acre property, but they were nowhere to be found. 3 weeks and an Amber Alert later, they were found mutilated at Soprano Valley State Park. The 2 9-year-old boys were found disfigured so badly that I puked on the spot. My little brother was on a noose, hanging from a tree near a small creek. Let's just say I was traumatized by what happened to be the goriest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. They found the camcorder next to my little brother. I found the camcorder and decided to play it. It was very grainy, like those old VHS tapes my grandma used to make us watch at night. Their voices were playful and full of life. Then the screen went dark, the same blood-curdling screech I heard while I got their drinks they never got to taste. The screen lit up, and I saw them running from something, their faces looking like they had seen hell. Then, it cuts to a black screen again. The words, "I can't save them," flashed on the screen. Some eerie music started playing, sending chills down my spine. Then the video cuts to the face of a sorta humanoid creature. Its shadowy figure scarred me for life. I then saw the two twins getting tortured, their screams of terror, their skulls being cracked open, this thing pulling their brains out. Picturing that made me throw up. All of a sudden, I see my little brother on the screen, his face slowly distorting while screams of terror run through the camcorder's tiny speakers. It then cuts to my little brother, hanging there on a noose. To this day, I still get those haunting flashbacks from when I saw that video. These things give me so much trauma, I can't watch a horror movie without leaving the room. I never want to watch anything like that ever again. Story 4. A dead man walks my neighborhood every night. No one else can see him. I was on the far side of my neighborhood when I saw him for the first time. The middle of winter, and yet, he wore a t-shirt and shorts. That was the first thing I noticed about him. We walked toward each other, me crossing the street as an SUV slowly approached. I was looking at the ground, but when he walked past me I felt a surge of heat, like an oven door had just opened. With it came a fetid air like that of burnt plastic. I turned around in time to see him crossing the street. That's when I noticed the second thing. The SUV came to a rolling stop at the stop sign. I screamed out and threw my hands in the air as I ran toward them, but the car passed right through the man as if he wasn't there. He continued to walk with his eyes forward. It was only then, looking at him closely, that I noticed the third thing. He was translucent, not obviously so, but enough that I could look through him and vaguely make out the dark shadow of a house. I watched him until he turned the corner. Then I ran home, looking over my shoulder every so often to make sure the ghost wasn't following me. At the time, my life was purgatory. I was 22 and had just graduated college. I was living with my parents and hadn't found a real job yet. I worked about 20 hours a week at a local grocery store and spent the rest of my time applying for jobs. I had this constant urge to do something crazy, move to Hollywood and live out of my car while I worked on my screenplays. Maybe I could sell all my possessions and travel the country in a van. I wanted something new and exciting. I didn't care if the new and exciting was bad news and exciting. I guess that's why I went back to the street where I first saw the ghost. He wasn't there the first few times I went, but I could always smell him, that pungently sour burnt smell, sometimes more fresh than others. It became a routine. I felt like a paranormal investigator. One Sunday evening, walking about 20 feet behind a couple pushing a baby in a stroller, there he was, walking towards us. Same t-shirt, same shorts. I stopped where I was and just watched. Neither he nor the family gave any indication that they saw each other. The ghost walked with its eyes resolutely forward. The mom and dad continued their conversation. And then the ghost walked through them. I found myself biting my thumb as he approached me. My heart was hammering so loud that I barely heard the next car driving by. But I was determined to hold my ground. If there was a chance to experience something new, I wanted to face it. There had to be a reason why only I could see him. The heat and smell consumed me as he walked by. I became incredibly dizzy. I saw stars. Then he was walking past me. I followed. The walk didn't last much longer, less than 5 minutes. We turned a corner. He walked toward the first house on the right, then disappeared as he entered the front yard. I was stuck in place and breathing hard when a voice came from behind me. "You can see him too, can't you?" I turned around to see a tall, handsome man roughly my age. He was looking down at me and smiling like I'd done something surprisingly cute. A little kid who just solved a math problem she hadn't been taught in school yet. "Yes," I said. "Who is he?" "Your guess is as good as mine. You followed him, didn't you?" I nodded. "That's how I found him too. He's always walking the same path, but he disappears right here. I think it's where he used to live." "Why?" "I don't know. Like I said, I found him the same way. You want to get a cup of coffee?" I was so taken aback that I laughed. He flinched as if I'd hit him. "I'll take that as a no?" He asked. "Yes," I said too sharply. "No. You shouldn't take it as a no. Let's get a cup of coffee and can you tell me more about the ghost? I don't know anything else. But I can tell you more about me. And maybe you can tell me more about you. I'm not sure if I said yes because I liked his smile, or because I didn't want to give up the adventure. Either way, 15 minutes later we had our drinks and were sitting down outside a local coffee shop. So, how often do you see ghosts? He asked. Not often, I said. I didn't want him to know that this was the first time. I wanted to seem cooler than I really was, like we were both a part of this selective club. I've been seeing them since I was little, he said, looking down at his drink. I learned that his old house was across the street from where we'd seen the ghost, but now he lived in his own apartment in the city. He just liked to watch the man sometimes. He said it was the only ghost he'd ever seen that never left. After that day we started hanging out a few times a week. Sometimes we'd get coffee, other times it was dinner, a movie, or a walk. I can't say I ever liked him that much, at least not romantically, but there was a certain dependency that started not long after the first coffee date. To some degree I felt close to him because of the power we shared. But he also had this anxious desperation. He hid it well, but I could tell that he was always holding his breath with me, or on the edge of his seat, silently begging me not to go. I felt bad for him. Most importantly, he was my key to the world's secrets. So when one day he asked me if I wanted to go back to his apartment, I said yes. Not because I felt that I had to, and not because I thought he would be mad if I said no, but because I wanted to be closer to him. Not sex, although that wasn't something I was opposed to. I wanted to see where he lived, what he kept in his fridge, what he had on his walls, what his room smelled like, what kind of shampoo he used. I wanted to know him, and you can't know someone unless you know how they live when they're alone. So we went to his apartment. He had no welcome mat or decorations, just a TV, a couch, and some books stacked against the wall. No kitchen table, no recliner, no place to put our shoes. He showed me to his room, a bed, a desk, and a computer. You sure know how to live. He laughed. When I was a kid, I spent all my time inside. I didn't get the chance to experience much. So, when I started living on my own, I decided I'd spend as much time outside as possible. It didn't make a lot of sense to me at first. I mean, was being outside inherently better than being inside? Over time I've realized that what he really cared about was having a reason for everything he did. He never wanted to go to bed feeling like he wasted his day, and he didn't want to die feeling like he wasted his life. He didn't mind being home if he was home for a reason, to write because that's where his desk was, to sleep because that's where his bed was, but he never wanted to waste time. That's what was important. We sat down on the couch and talked for a while. I don't remember what about. What I do remember is the way his eyes softened and his lips parted slowly. How he lowered his chin in a way that made him look like a child. I remember, better than I remember anything else, how softly he asked me, "Will you please try to find me?" What? I want you to go outside, wait a few seconds, then come inside and find me. Something about the way he asked made me just do it. I wanted to make him happy. There was just something so sad about him. I gave him about 15 seconds. There weren't a lot of places to hide inside the apartment, but it took me a long time to find him because I was walking so slowly. I thought he was planning to jump out and scare me. I checked behind the couch, under the bed, behind the shower curtain. I opened the towel closet half joking, but found him curled into a ball under the shelf. He was rocking himself back and forth and crying. When I reached for him, he straightened his legs and scooted out. He stood up and I kissed him. It wasn't exactly how I expected our first time to go, but yes, that was it. For weeks after, almost every night, I'd search for him and we'd make love. I didn't particularly like the strange game of hide and seek, but I didn't hate it either, and it made him happy, so I did it. We were lying in his bed one night, no hiding and no seeking, my head on his chest, when he told me everything. He saw a ghost for the first time while he was playing in his backyard with his mom. Only he didn't realize it was a ghost. He thought it was funny that the yellow dog kept walking back and forth from the big tree to their back door. When he perfectly described the dog, which had died before he was born, was buried under the tree, and that he had absolutely not seen any pictures of, his mom brought him inside and prayed over him for hours. Later, when he saw a gray man in the house, She beat him so badly that he was kept out of school for a week for fear of teachers taking notice. She started drinking, and her beatings became more and more frequent. Only she was smarter about how she dished them out. She hit him in places where no one could see the evidence. His chest and his back. She thought she could beat the demons out of him. He started hiding every time his mom drank, or when he knew she'd be coming home late from the bar. She'd walk into the house screaming his name. Sometimes, if he hid really well, it would take her over an hour to find him. But she would never stop looking until she did. Even now, he said, part of me feels loved. She always looked for me so hard. Like I mattered to her more than anything else in the world. She wanted to find me and beat me because she thought she could cure me. If she hated me, she could have just kicked me out or killed me, you know? She never stopped looking and she never stopped trying. Until she died. How'd she die? It happened when he was 12. She came home after a long night at the bar. She found him quickly because he wasn't hiding at all. He was sitting on the couch waiting for her. She went to slap him, but when her arm was just an inch away, he caught her by the wrist, squeezed hard, looked her in the eyes, and told her no. When she tried to hit him with the other hand, he caught that one too. He let go and she tried to hit him again and again, but each time he caught her arm. He didn't hit her back, but for the first time he defended himself. She ran to her room sobbing. I should have just hid, he said. She would have looked for me and she would have found me, like always. But in the morning it was he that found her, dead in her bed, with another her checking in closets and behind furniture. I'm right here, he said. She turned. You found me. She walked toward him like she always did, eyes narrowed and fist raised to strike. But when she brought that fist down, it went swiftly through him like a knife slicing a thin layer of smoke. She tried to hit him again and again as she screamed like a banshee. He backed away. Why do you want to hurt me? There's a demon inside you. You need to stop talking to ghosts. You're a ghost. He ran out of the house and called the police. But as he looked through the front window one last time, he saw her, searching for him. I think it has something to do with trauma, he said. Or purpose. Sometimes I think they're the same thing. I was her trauma, and her purpose was to stop me. She thought beating me could stop me. And when she couldn't beat me anymore, she had no purpose. She's stuck living in a world where she's always trying to find me, even when I'm not there. When he was done talking, I told him to hide, and I looked for him harder than ever. The next day we went to see the ghost again. Why do you think he's still here? I asked. Trauma, I guess. And how come I can see him? You're probably connected somehow. You seem them more strongly when you are. We watched him for hours until he disappeared. I've always wondered where he goes when he's not there. Is he stuck somewhere in between our world and elsewhere? Does he choose to come back, or is he forced to? Over time I began to feel strange and guilty about our hide and seek. Was I helping him heal him from his trauma, or forcing him to stay in it? I drifted away from him. We went from going to his apartment every day to hanging out once a week. He tried to reach out, but I always had some reason why I couldn't come over. Once a week turned to every other week. Then we were just texting every so often. At some point we became strangers. I found a job as a tutor. It was full-time and I found myself enjoying the work, looking forward to sessions, and feeling as though I did have a purpose, helping these kids get into college. Life was good. I didn't need to chase something extreme to feel like I was living. But like most experiences, once I settled into normalcy, I was bored again. The students seemed to get dumber and less motivated over time. There wasn't a point in what I was doing. These kids were all rich, and with their parents' money they were going to be fine without my help anyway. I was just another servant to make their lives easier. In the same way that they could clean their houses without maids, they could study without a tutor. It would just take effort. When I got bored, I started reaching out again. I texted him a few times and he didn't answer, but I couldn't blame him. After all, the last text he'd sent me was asking if I wanted to get dinner. 2 months later and I'd never replied. I went to the street to watch the ghost again. I wondered what his trauma was. After a while, it felt like watching the northern lights after enough time. It was cool and all, but if I couldn't be a part of it, what was the point? I wanted to live excitement. I didn't just want to watch. I got in my car and drove to his apartment. I knocked on his door, but when he didn't answer, I went home. I tried again the next day and the next. As ashamed as I am to admit it, I started to get angry. I treated him like a video game that wasn't working. He was the reason I couldn't have my fun, my excitement, my joy. There was only one of him. I couldn't just go buy another copy. So, one day, after sitting outside his apartment for 3 hours, I just opened the door. I called his name a couple of times. I shouted that it was me. I said I just wanted to make sure he was okay. He didn't answer, so I walked inside and started looking. I found myself checking all the places he used to hide back when we were together: behind the couch, in the bedroom closet, under his bed. When I walked into his bathroom, the smell hit me. He was lying in the tub, curled into a ball, yet so flat that he was almost sinking into it. After a moment, I realized that he was sinking into it. The body in the tub was his ghost. "Oh God," I cried. He looked up at me and smiled. "You found me. What happened to you?" He didn't answer. "Why didn't you tell me you were going to do this? I could have helped you, couldn't I?" "You were using me." I paused for a second, tried to think of a response, then gave in, crying. "Yes, I was. But I still care. I'm sorry." He didn't respond, just stayed curled in a ball. "Why are you still here? Why can't you move on? Things are different. Are they better?" He didn't respond for so long that I almost asked again. "No," he said. "Are you choosing to hide? Could you move on somewhere else? There's a door. But I don't know what's on the other side. You need to go. You don't want to be stuck here forever. If I go, then who will find me?" There was nothing to say. It was too late. I left. I don't look for ghosts anymore. Story 5. I think someone is watching me. Hi guys, I know this isn't what is usually posted here, but a couple of years ago, I made a similar post and everyone was so helpful. I'm not sure if this is linked to the previous events I posted about, but someone, who I presume was living in my apartment complex, was hacking my speakers and other devices, playing disturbing songs through them at random times. Creepy songs that they would put at full volume and at all hours of the day and night. I know it doesn't sound scary, but it was to me. After months of torment, that situation eventually stopped, and I moved out of that apartment shortly after, so I never found out who it was. I don't know if what's happening now is connected, but it's strange. And I'm scared. I moved into a new apartment/townhouse about 6 months ago. It's a nice place in a nice suburb that's meant to be very safe. And everything was normal. I was thriving until around 2 months ago. At the beginning, I just thought I was being silly or going crazy. There were little things like my front door being left unlocked overnight even though I remembered locking it before I went to bed. Or I'd come home from work and the bathroom light would be on, even though I always turn off everything before leaving. At first I just thought I was overstressed and being forgetful, but then I noticed things that couldn't just be in my head. I leave my keys on the side table just beside the door every night after I lock it, but one morning I woke up and they were on the floor by the back door. Another time, I found my bedroom window cracked open in my room. I have a cat who is very adventurous. I never open that window. Or any window for that matter. At this point I started to really freak out. I'm a young girl, I live alone, and I've always had these creepy things happen to me. It sent me into a spiral. I have my blinds down all the time, but my bedroom faces a narrow alley, and you can hear everything: people walking, talking, coughing, anything that happens in the alley. And lately it's been feeling more deliberate. I know I sound crazy, but I'm seriously freaked out. One night last week at 2:30 a.m., I woke up to the sound of tapping on my window. I froze, I couldn't move. Trying not to scream and make myself known. But after a bit it stopped and it was completely silent, but I couldn't fall back asleep. I thought it was in my head or a tree branch or something, but the next morning, I found 2 fingerprints smeared across my bedroom window from the outside. At this point, I told my landlord to see if he would put up cameras at the front of the house, but he brushed it off, saying it was probably just some of the kids from down the road. It wasn't, but tell me how that makes a fucking difference. So I installed a Ring camera at my front door 3 days ago. Since then, I've had 3 alerts of motion detected between 2 and 4 a.m. Every time, the footage shows nothing. Just an empty alley. But I'm getting paranoid that someone is standing just out of frame. And 2 days ago my bedroom light was on when I came home from work. I haven't used any of the same devices I had during the speaker hacking thing a few years back. I changed my number, moved apartments, new accounts, everything. But now this is happening and I can't shake the feeling that somehow, the person found me again. Or maybe this is someone entirely new. Either way, I don't feel safe anymore. I'm jumpy all the time, sleeping with a light on, checking every lock multiple times a night. And part of me is terrified that whoever it is waiting for me to break psychologically. But now I have no clue what to do because I went to the police yesterday and they weren't helpful at all. They said they can't do anything unless I have proof, and honestly, I don't even know what that would look like right now. But I know something's not right. Please, if anyone can give me any advice on what to do, I can't afford to move and I'm genuinely losing my mind. Story 6. Old Man at the Bar. I 28 work as a bartender in a bar or restaurant. Last night at work I had a very strange old man come in for a drink. As soon as he sat down I had a bad feeling about him. He ordered a beer and started talking about his day and whatnot. He said he's from the area, but moved to the state capital back in the 70s or 80s, and that he visits for 1 week every July. The conversation was normal for about 10 minutes. He'd continued by telling me about his family and what it was like growing up here. After the conversation had finished, he pulled out envelopes with stacks of photos in them. My gut was telling me the photos were something bad, but I'd hoped it was just photos from his trips. The first one was an AI-generated photo of a cat on a surfboard, but after that all the other ones were of young women. The photos were all AI-generated and all the women in the photos he was showing me were celebrities wearing a typical Daisy Duke outfit. I tried to be friendly and told him how crazy it is that the internet can make these photos of celebrities look so real. At one point he did show me a picture of a real lady that he watches on YouTube, but it was similar to the other photos. She was wearing tiny shorts bent over the engine of her truck. At this point the cooks were leaving for the night and I was the only employee left in the building. The owner was in the office working on paperwork. I went back and let him know that I was getting a really weird vibe from the guy and he agreed, saying the cooks were talking about him and the bartender the night before had talked to him then. He thanked me for letting him know and I went back to work. He shuffled through his photos again looking for some to show me, but let me know he could show me any because the women were only wearing their panties. I tried to avoid the guy after that, but there were only a few other patrons in the building and they were all sitting at tables. I went to do some cleaning behind the bar and he started talking about the girl from YouTube and how young and pretty she is. He pointed out that she looks like a teenager and that's why he liked her videos so much, but told me she is in her 30s. I am a young-looking girl. Most people who don't know me think I'm still 20-21-ish, so this made me extremely uncomfortable. I ignored the comments about her and he started talking about his family again. I was responding with bare minimum responses, just trying to make it to close in 15 minutes. All the patrons had left at this point except him, and I let him know we would be closing very soon and he should start gathering his things. Instead of picking up his photos, he said something about why he moved to the state capital. I was barely listening at this point, until he said he was told to leave the city. I didn't say anything or ask about it, but he continued saying the county court had him sent away all those years ago. It just so happened that there's a large prison in the state's capital and it seemed like more than a coincidence. At this point I'm about to just tell the owner to kick him out when he starts talking about why he was sent there. It was a story of how he did something breast-related to a girl in elementary school. I'm not very good at guessing people's ages, but there's no way this man was in elementary school in the 70-80s. He said the girl told the teacher about him even though it didn't happen, but no one believed him, so he got sent away. He said he was resentful towards this girl for many years until he heard she has special needs and isn't mentally capable of making up a lie like that. I was dumbfounded. I couldn't tell if he was saying he did it or if the teacher was the one lying. We were closing in like 2 minutes at this point, so I tried to wrap up his conversation by telling him I hope his trip was nice and to have a safe trip home. He slowly packed his things and I walked around the bar to the tables by the front door to lock it after he left. He walked towards the door slower than I've ever seen anyone walk, and he'd always walk towards me even if I was standing next to a table away from the door. I was terrified at this point, so I called my husband and put my phone in my pocket in case something happened. At that moment the owner turned half the lights off and walked towards me. I politely told the man he has to leave now and again said I hope he has a safe trip. As he opened the door to leave, he turned back around and said, "I'll probably be back in tomorrow to see you. I don't leave town until Sunday." Story 7. Not all creeps are old men. Hello everyone, Major Lurker here, but I've decided to tell my story on Reddit to those who don't know me. I've scrolled Reddit for years now, but I've never actually set up an account, so here I am. I was 11 the first time I saw him. I had just gotten out of school and I remember being hot and tired but still excited because I had chore money in my backpack. $8 and some change, crumpled into my bag next to a mechanical pencil I found on the floor, that high-quality shit. That was enough for a happy meal. Nuggets, fries, a little toy I'd pretend I didn't care about, and a Sprite. Heaven. The McDonald's was only a few blocks from the school and up the hill from my apartment. My mom wasn't crazy about me walking around alone, but she also worked 2 jobs and couldn't pick me up most days. If I got home before 5 and didn't talk to strangers, she didn't ask too many questions. I kept my phone on 50% brightness to save battery, pretended like I was grown, and slid my earbuds in like I had somewhere important to be. That McDonald's became my little kingdom. Booth by the window, shoes kicked off under the table, watching YouTube Vine compilations on my cracked phone while sipping a Sprite like it was champagne. I had just discovered Tumblr that year. I was reposting Melanie Martinez fan edits and thinking I understood what the word aesthetic meant. I was 11 going on 20, or at least I thought I was. That's probably why I didn't think it was weird when he sat near me. He didn't work there. I knew that much. He was too old to be hanging around during school hours and didn't have a uniform. But the first time, I assumed he was waiting for someone. He had on this navy hoodie, sleeves pushed up, and a ragged backpack next to him like he also just got out of school. He looked maybe 17, 18 at the oldest, with a face like he'd just started growing into it. Tall, white boy, deep voice. He looked like one of those SoundCloud emo rapper dudes. "You draw?" he asked, nodding at my sketchbook. I shrugged, trying to act unbothered. "Kinda," I said. "Not like for real for real." "You got talent," he said, and I felt my chest puff up just a little. Nobody ever said stuff like that to me, especially not older boys. At school, most of the guys my age were busy with whatever the popular trends were back then. This one? He looked me in the eye when he talked. Made me feel seen. The next time, he was already there. Same booth, same backpack, same easy smile when I walked in. "You again," he said. "Are you following me or something?" I laughed, a little too loud. He always knew what to say to make me feel grown. He'd ask about school, about my drawings, about music. Then he started asking other stuff. Like what my background was, what kind of guys I liked. Said I didn't talk like the other black girls he knew, whatever that meant. I didn't even know how to respond to that one. But still I came back. Week after week. Sometimes twice a week if I had extra change. And he was always there. Like it was planned. The first few weeks, the conversations felt like a secret game. He'd show up at McDonald's like clockwork, sometimes early afternoon, sometimes after school, and we'd talk about everything but what I was really thinking about. I liked how he made me feel special. Like I was this rare thing, not just a kid with a happy meal and a sketchbook, but someone worth paying attention to. When he asked for my number, I thought, this is it. I'm officially grown. I still remember the moment I handed him my phone, watching him punch in the digits. It felt thrilling, like I was stepping into a world I wasn't supposed to know about yet. My fingers brushed the screen, hesitated for a second, then I pressed send on the first text I ever wrote to him. "Hey, it's me." His reply came almost immediately, "You cute. You are always gonna be my favorite artist." That first text stayed with me for days. I showed it to my best friend like it was a badge of honor. "He thinks I'm cool," I told her, my voice a little higher than usual. "He really listens." She shrugged, told me to be careful, but I didn't want to hear it. Middle school kids always try to act like they're grown, anyway. Everybody's pretending. I was just pretending better. Sometimes he'd ask me stuff that felt off, but he always said it like it was a joke, so I played along. Like, out of nowhere, he'd be like, "Do you say the N-word? Be real." Or, "What would you do if someone called you that at school?" And then one day he asked, So can I get an N-word pass? You cool like that, right? I remember laughing, but not because it was funny, more like I didn't know what else to do. Then he hit me with, I'll trade you $5 and a Sprite if you will be my personal slave for a day. And when I froze a little, he was like, chill, I'm joking. Damn, you're sensitive. He'd sometimes try to talk hood around me too, saying stuff like, on gang, or, yo, you tryna wild out, in this fake deep voice that didn't even sound like him. At the time, I didn't know what the hell he was on. But looking back now, he was testing me. The text started innocently. What are you drawing now? Did you finish your homework? You watchin' that new Stranger Things? He even sent me links to music, playlists he said reminded him of me. But over time, things got a little different. A little heavier. He'd ask stuff that made me pause, questions about my body, if I'd started changing yet, who I liked, if anyone had kissed me. I felt weird, but also proud to answer. Like I was a grown woman sharing secrets with a friend. Sometimes I'd get texts when I was supposed to be asleep. Bet you look good in your PJs. You stayin' up late just thinking about me? I told myself it was a joke. That he was just being funny. It was part of the game. I was learning the rules. I wanted to be in it. After all, kids at school were trading stories about boys and crushes like it was some kind of competition. I didn't want to be the only one who'd never been talked to like that. But even then, there were moments when my stomach flipped. When he asked if I started growing hair yet, or sent me a picture of his hand gripping a pillow. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I didn't want to lose him. And besides, I thought I was grown enough to handle it. I thought I knew what I was doing. Still, I kept going to McDonald's, even on days I didn't have much money. Sometimes I'd sit farther away, pretending not to notice him watching me. I told myself I was just being cautious. I told myself I was in control. But the truth was, it was getting harder to breathe when he was around. Like the air was thicker, heavier, and I didn't know how to make it stop. It wasn't like I told my mom about any of it. I knew she wouldn't understand. She was busy with work, with bills, with trying to keep everything together. And I was supposed to be a kid, not dealing with this stuff. So I kept it all inside, tucked away under layers of laughs and texts and drawings. Looking back now, I can see the signs I missed. The way his smile sometimes didn't reach his eyes. The way his questions stopped being about me and started being about control. But back then I was 11 and I thought I was grown. And that was my mistake. I thought blocking his number would end it. When my mom found the texts, she didn't scream or curse like I thought she would. She just stared at me, emotionless. Then she said real quietly, "You block that boy. Don't answer. Don't go back there. Understand me?" I nodded. She didn't say anything else. Just walked out the room and left me sitting there with my heart pounding and my phone locked in her hand. I told her I'd stop going to McDonald's. And for a while I did. I stayed home after school, watched anime reruns on my tablet, sketched in silence. My bestie kept texting me to hang out, but I kept saying no. I wanted to be good, I really did. But something about the quiet made me feel itchy. I missed the way he made me feel seen. Like I wasn't just some awkward kid with Velcro sneakers, I missed the attention. Even if the words were weird sometimes. Even if the questions made my stomach twist. So one Friday when my mom had a double shift, I walked back to the McDonald's. I told myself I wasn't gonna talk to him. I'd just sit, leave. That was it. I had $10 from babysitting my cousin the weekend before. I ordered a Happy Meal, even though I told myself I wasn't a little kid anymore. It just felt safe, familiar. He was already inside. Same hoodie. Same old backpack. Same smile, but it didn't look soft this time. It looked sharp. He watched me sit down in the booth by the window like he'd been waiting. I thought he'd maybe give me a nod from across the room. Instead, he walked straight over and slid in next to me. Next to me. Not across. Right there on the same side, his body pressed against mine. I stiffened, staring at the tray in front of me, my hands shaking a little as I opened the tiny milk jug. "You've been avoiding me," he said, low and flat. I tried to laugh. "Nah, I've just been busy. Homework and stuff." He didn't laugh back. Instead, his leg pressed harder against mine, and I could feel how much taller, how much bigger he was. He was taking up all the space. I suddenly felt how small my arms were. How my hoodie sleeves still bunched up at the wrists because I hadn't hit that growth spurt yet. I wasn't grown. I wasn't even close. He leaned in, hot-ass breath hitting my face. "I thought you were different," he said. "I thought you could handle grown-up things. But you just like the rest of them little girls." Scared. My whole body went still. Then, without warning, he put his hand on my thigh, hard. He gripped it tight, his fingers digging in like he was trying to leave a mark. I winced, but I didn't say anything. My whole brain just shut off. He wasn't looking at me anymore. Just staring straight ahead, his fingers still pressing into the soft part above my knee. "I thought you were actually mature," he said, almost like he was sad. "Guess I was wrong." I don't even remember standing up. I just remember the sound of the tray clattering to the floor, my fries spilling under the table, the little toy bouncing out of the box and rolling near his foot. I didn't stop to grab it. I didn't look back. I walked out the front door like I had somewhere to be, then ran the second my feet hit the sidewalk. I didn't cry until I got home. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell my friend. I just went straight to my room, curled under the blanket, and felt my thigh throbbing where his fingers had been. After that, I didn't go anywhere but school and home. Even walking past that McDonald's made my stomach twist. That Friday was the last time I tried to act grown. It was the last time I let myself believe I was in control. Looking back now, he saw me alone. He saw how eager I was to be taken seriously. How easy it was to plant compliments like seeds and watch them grow into something he could use. And I gave him room. I let him sit next to me. I laughed when he said creepy things. I answered texts I didn't know how to read right. But I was 11. I just knew I wanted to feel special. And he knew exactly how to use that. I think about that grip on my thigh more than I want to admit. Not because it hurt, but because it changed something in me. That moment snapped the fantasy clean in half. I wasn't grown. I was a little girl in a hoodie too big and a heart too soft to carry the weight he put on it. I remember how fast the fear came rushing in, how fake all the flirting felt after that. I remember the silence afterward. The kind that sticks to you. Now that I'm 21, I catch myself watching girls like I used to be. Sitting at McDonald's, earbuds in, doodling on napkins, thinking they've got it all figured out. And I want to tell them, baby, you don't. That's not your fault. It's his. The older boy who keeps showing up where you feel safe. The one who talks to you like you're different. Like you're smarter than everyone else. Like he's doing you a favor just by paying attention. That boy doesn't think you're special. He thinks you're easy to fool. I'm not ashamed of being that little girl anymore. I was soft and bright and curious, and he mistook all that for permission. But I'm angry with her. I wish somebody had caught me walking into that McDonald's and told me to go home. I wish I had believed my mom the first time. I wish I had known that no grown man should ever have been paying that much attention to a kid. To the high school boy who saw a little girl and thought she was something to play with, let's not ever meet again. Story 8. Sketchy ice cream truck. Something reminded me of this the other day, and while thinking about it, I thought it might warrant a post on here. Many years ago, I want to say around 1997 to 98, some friends and I went to visit a guy we knew who sold us weed. We knew him well enough and were friendly enough that we'd usually stay, smoke up and have a few beers and shoot the breeze when we went to his house. It was a weekday night in early summer, so we were all standing around in his backyard talking. He lived in a particular subdivision here in town where a lot of the houses in the neighborhood had alleys behind them. Anyways, it was probably between midnight to 12:30 a.m., and as we stood there talking, we started to hear this faint music off in the distance. Didn't think anything of it at first, and we just kept talking. Then we noticed it getting louder, and I could identify the melody. It was Für Elise by Beethoven, and it sounded even closer. Once it got close enough, you could clearly tell it was coming from an ice cream truck, and, sure enough, down the alley behind this guy's house comes rolling an ice cream truck, maybe going like 10 miles per hour. The alleys are badly lit in that area, so we never got a clear view of the driver. After it drove on through, we all looked at each other and were like, what the hell is an ice cream man doing driving out after midnight with his truck music on, going down an alley no less? It was surreal enough, and us being stoned made it even more so. A few minutes later we hear the music again, then it gets louder again, and the truck rolls back down the alley going in the opposite direction. Not like I was in fear for my life or anything, but just the weird spectacle of that. The incongruity of it made us all feel uneasy. I'm sure the weed didn't help that either. I still wonder what the driver was doing to this day. Story 9. Man in the airport. A few weeks ago I was in the Denver airport. I got to the airport way early for my flight out of convenience. I walked to the terminal with my bag and suitcase to get some exercise, checking the options for food. I decided where to get lunch, got my food and swiftly walked back to where I had decided to sit. I stop at my decided seat facing a window and set my food down, taking off my backpack and kinda turning around. I noticed this man standing close to another man sitting in a chair, behind my seat in the next set of chairs. Thinking they were together. When I sat down, the same man walked over to the doors in front of me a little to the left, and stood facing the camera box, his face only inches from it. Weird, I take notice. He walked off, but came back quickly. At this point I am taking more notice, checking his hands to see if he is touching himself or trying to take a picture of me. He is not, just standing there, nose literally almost touching the door. He disappears and I am enjoying my food, and an employee begins approaching me. I pause my podcast and greet him. He is obviously coming to speak with me. He asks me if I know the man and points towards the door he was standing. No, I do not know him. The employee, so I just wanted to let you know that he was following you. He had followed me through over half of the terminal. The employee said he saw the man notice me and basically take off running after me, and the employee followed us. The employee said he tried to cut in between the man and me and that the man sped up so that the employee was unable to get between us. According to the employee, when I sat down the guy sat behind me, and when I turned around he stood up and jumped over to be standing beside the other guy, when I had thought that they were traveling together. When I sat down again he came and stood in front of me, facing the door. Paced off back to the other random guy and then back to the door. He ran off when the employee came over to talk to me and ask if I knew the man. The employee had been watching where he went, walking off into a shop. He was going to go see what was going on and that if anything else happens to please alert an employee. Another employee, I think more of a security type, came to chat with me and just make sure that I was okay. At some point the man behind me, the one that the man stood next to, also piped up that it was strange and he had also been alerted by the man's movements and standing so close to him. During this the original employee came back and let me know that he had boarded his flight. From the time the employee first approached me until the man boarded his flight it was only about 10 to 15 minutes that this all took place. To the man in the airport, let's not meet. Picture of where he was standing in the comments. Edit to add pic info. Story 10. It can happen even in the safest of accommodations. This is going to be a long one, so grab a drink and a snack. I live in Dublin, Ireland in one of many assisted living accommodations. There is a reception and there is staff there during the day and security guards at night. I feel very happy and safe living here. I even feel safe enough to sleep with my window cracked if it gets too warm in the summer. Until last Friday I felt that once I got behind our gates which are locked at night, I'm totally safe. Last Friday it has all changed however. Another thing you need to know is the fact that I absolutely love attending various concerts and shows at various venues here in Dublin. Since I cannot see, the view doesn't matter, so I get the cheapest tickets and go quite often. So, last Friday, yes, on the 4th of July, I was returning home from one such concert sometime after 10 p.m., 2,200 hours. The taxi pulled up to the locked main gate. I buzzed the intercom in order to ask a security guard to let me in the side gate. I have the key, but the lock is stiff and fiddly. The key gets stuck, once inserted, and/or wouldn't turn. The security guard didn't answer after the 2 rings. That meant he had gone on one of his hourly patrols around the whole property, so the taxi driver offered to open the side gate for me, relock it, and then pass me the key through the gate, so that's what we did. Once I was halfway through the courtyard, the guard came up, apologizing for not being there. He has indeed been patrolling. I responded that it was okay. He helped me through the rest of the courtyard in order to help me dodge the parked cars. Then this gentleman brought me into our building, straight ahead through the reception area, then turning right towards the double doors, which lead to the corridor, which leads straight to my apartment door. Usually, this guy leads me to the double doors, opens them for me and then lets me walk the rest of the way to my door unaided, as it is just a straight walk without any obstacles. Besides, I'm safe, I'm behind the locked gates with cameras all around. Nothing bad can happen, right? So I found and opened my door, entered my APT, went to close and lock my front door as I always do straight after entering and found out that the door was strangely stiff. My first thought was, I must put in a maintenance request tomorrow or Monday, there is something wrong with my front door. In the meantime, I was determined to close and lock this door, but the more I tried to shut this door, the more it resisted. I then realized with horror that there was someone on the other side of this door trying to prevent my shutting and locking it. This has really frightened me. I thought that whoever was on the other side of that door would force her way in and sexually assault me. I threw my whole body on that door and pushed with all of my meager strength, but the intruder did the same. At this stage I really panicked and shouted loudly, "What is it?" As soon as I shouted, I heard and felt the door close with a little slam. The instant that happened, I turned the lock straight away. After that I just leaned against the wall and tried to process what just happened. Did somebody really try to enter my app just now? How come I never heard her walking behind me? Should I report this to the security immediately? But what if it was that security guard who tried forcing his way in? What if he tampers with camera footage? Are there even cameras in my corridor, and if there aren't, would I even be believed? I went to bed without reporting it, but the more I thought about that incident on Saturday, the more freaked out I became. So on Saturday afternoon, I sent my key worker a nice Luang voice message on WhatsApp, detailing what happened the night before. I knew that she wouldn't get that message until Monday, but at least I reported it. I attended another concert on Sunday and blessedly, nothing happened. I was able to open and close my front door on my return, no problem. Unfortunately, my key worker couldn't get to her work phone on Monday, but she got my message yesterday and first said that she'll contact me in an hour, once she has a word with the building manager. After an hour, my key worker requested a meeting between herself, myself, and the building manager. What the building manager had to tell me made me shudder. Apparently, the camera footage showed the security guard going the opposite direction to where I went in order to finish his patrol, but someone had indeed been following me in my corridor. You couldn't see the struggle at my door, but you can see that person running away. I was told that because of GDPR, the staff couldn't let me know as of yet who it was that tried forcing her way into my app. But we have contacted the police and are now waiting for an officer to come up and take my statement. I was also told that that person must have been looking for money and didn't have any sexual motives. I still want to press charges though, as I don't want something similar happening again either to me or to any other resident of our complex. I was also given an option of a security guard walking me right to my door and making sure I close and lock it every time I returned from one of my concerts and/or shows. I gladly took the staff up on that offer. So, to a person who tried forcing her way into my apartment, unfortunately, we'll probably have to meet again, but I hope you will be in handcuffs when we do. TLD, somebody tried preventing my closing and locking my apartment door after I returned from one of my concerts. The update is a bit anticlimactic. So the police have been. They were very understanding and sympathetic. They interviewed me and looked at the footage. It turns out that my would-be mugger or robber is a minor. I was told I could go ahead and press charges, but that kid wouldn't be prosecuted as he is a minor, but they would definitely give him a stern warning. I decided not to press charges, since he wouldn't really be punished. I also don't know what his parents or guardians are like. Would they try to intimidate me? I do hope that the police would put the fear of God into that person, so that she would think twice before trying anything like that again. Story 11. A strange man showed me a slip leash. He had no dog with him. This happened a couple weeks ago. I'm a female dog walker and I spend a lot of time by myself in various parks and forests, so I'm pretty aware of my surroundings but haven't had anything happen until now. So I'm walking my Litlies, a pack of 3 small breed dogs, essentially the opposite of scary dog privileges LOL, and this man comes out of nowhere and straight up to me. Middle-aged, thin and in shorts and a hoodie but not ringing any alarm bells. He just looks like a normal guy. He strikes up a conversation and I'm polite, just talking about the weather etc. and thinking he's just a friendly stranger, when out of nowhere he says, "I saw another lady dog walker yesterday and she had a nervous dog, so I was trying to help socialize him." Which is weird because it didn't sound like he knew the dog walker in question, and my assumption was confirmed when he continued, "Yeah, I know about dogs, so I took out my slip lead and tried to get him used to it, and she freaked out." For anyone who doesn't know, this is like a slip knot that tightens if the dog pulls on it. Then while I'm trying to process what the hell he's talking about, he takes a slip lead out of his pocket and shows it to me, at which point one of my dogs, who normally loves everyone, starts a warning growl. He just laughs, and I'm starting to feel super uneasy because he doesn't have any dogs with him, and why does he have what is essentially a strangulation device just in his pocket? Eventually I manage to get away saying something about my dad waiting in the car, and he watches me walk away while my dogs keep growling back at him. Once in my car I actually processed what he said and did, and everything my gut was telling me was off about the situation, and decided to call the police to report him. They take it seriously, and I've warned other dog walkers about him, but yeah, strange man with the slip lead and no dogs, let's not meet. Story 12. I went on a date with a horrifying anti-Jewish man. So I, 18F, hung out with this guy, 21M, who had set me up 3 times before, but I was really bored and lonely. My actual crush said he felt like he was entering a depressive episode, and I didn't want to bother him, so I gave this other guy a shot. He picked me up and immediately threw me off. He looked strange, nothing really like his photo, but whatever. We didn't really have a plan. I already felt super uncomfortable, but I decided to give it a try anyway. He drove to a gas station to do whatever he needed to do. Then I said we should totally go to Dave & Buster's, and he said, might as well, so we went. He blew $40 on tickets, but we ended up giving the card to some kids because, in his words, I don't want anything. That part was fine, but after that he started acting really weird. He kept joking about killing us while driving and swerving, and at one point he was driving with his knees and had both hands above his head. I don't know if he thought it was impressive or what, but I just stared at my phone and pretended not to notice because I was already so uncomfortable. Then he parked at a local park that was completely locked and said, "Aw man," and I told him of course it's locked, it's a town park and it's late. So he just sat there, parked, and I could feel that he was trying to make a move. I stayed glued to my phone, knowing exactly what he wanted, and eventually I suggested we head downtown, which is near my place. He said okay, but once again started swerving, speeding, and driving with no hands. I was so unbelievably uncomfortable. I kept dropping hints that I wanted to go home, but he wasn't picking up on any of them. We got downtown and he said he needed a smoke break, so he parked in front of a smoke shop and went inside to buy a cart while I sat in the car texting my friend about what a nightmare I was trapped in. When he came back, he started driving through random neighborhoods and kept pointing out secluded houses he liked, talking about which ones he could see himself living in. It was so creepy. We finally got back to the main street, and again he randomly turned off and almost hit a pole. I asked him what he was doing and he said, "Sorry, I'm impulsive," then launched into this whole monologue about his dangerous lifestyle. He had not asked me a single thing about myself the entire time. He just kept talking about himself. At this point, I was over it, so I tried to steer the vibe back to my house. I thought he got the hint when we were near my place, but then he randomly noticed a clock on the side of a Wegmans and said, "Whoa, that's so cool. I want to go see that." I said, "Yeah, I live near it, obviously I've been there," and he said, "Okay, smartus," and laughed. I didn't laugh because it just wasn't funny. He parked in the empty Wegmans parking lot and took off his seatbelt, moved his seat back, and kept giving me that look guys give when they want to kiss you. I was on my phone messing with my vape and scrolling to make it very clear that wasn't happening. Then he randomly said, "Okay, tell me about yourself," and I said, "Okay, ask questions." He just sat there in silence and said, "You clearly want to go home." I thought finally he got the message. I raised my hands and said, "Yeah, sure, whatever." But instead of taking me home, he started asking me questions again, so I was trapped yet again. I told him about my college plans, and then he started asking where my family is from and what my last name is. He then went on an entire rant about how Nigerians are evil and how I must be toxic. The whole thing just felt weird. I think I've mentally blocked out some parts because it was that uncomfortable. Eventually I said I was getting tired, and he finally agreed to take me home. But instead of going the normal way, he took the longest route possible, then missed my turn on purpose. I pointed it out and he said, "Fuck, okay," then turned around. We finally got to my house, and just as I was about to leave, he parked and pulled his seat back again. I just sat there trying not to show any fear because I really didn't want him to touch me. He kept looking at me, clearly wanting to kiss, but I didn't even want to look at him. Then somehow he started talking about Palestine and Israel, which I'm interested in because it's obviously a heartbreaking conflict. But then he started blaming Jews for everything, saying they run all the banks and basically control the entire world. I asked him if he blamed all Jews, because that's what it sounded like, and he said no but just kept going with more conspiracies. He said his family had to escape to Egypt, and I said I was sorry. He kept looking at me like he wanted to kiss, and I just refused to look back. Then he said he wanted to show me this ancient scripture of Israelite laws and pointed to something that claimed the age of consent was 3.5 years old. Mind you, he idolizes Kanye and was wearing Yeezys talking about how Jews are all evil and should all die. I asked him if he had met a real Jewish person and spoke to them. All he said was, "Yeah, I work at a car dealership, they are greedy and cheap," and proceeded to burst out laughing. I was just frozen thinking, this cannot be real. That's when I said, "Okay, well I really have to go," and tried to play it casually so he wouldn't touch me. I said we could hang out tomorrow, and he said, "Okay, for PM, are you free?" I lied and said I'd check my work schedule. I pretended to check and said yeah, that works. I told him to text me when he got home and dashed out of that car like my life depended on it. The second I got inside, I texted my friend everything, made sure he wasn't following me, and immediately blocked him on Tinder and Instagram. I don't know what kind of person thinks any of that is appropriate on a first date, but I hope I never cross paths with him again. Story 13. I had a creepy hostel roommate and didn't realize how bad it was until the last day. A few years ago, I was traveling solo in South Korea after finishing a semester abroad in Japan. I was 21, still pretty naive and carefree. My friends had already flown home, so I figured I'd explore Seoul on my own for a few days before heading back to Japan and then home. I booked a hostel in Gangnam, a safe neighborhood, which had good reviews. But I made one big mistake. I booked a mixed dorm. I thought mixed meant a blend of people, but when I got there, it was just me, sharing a room with 5 men. I told myself it was fine. I was just there to sleep. Most people in hostels are chill anyway, right? For the most part, that turned out to be true. I even went out for dinner with 2 of the guys staying there and they were really nice. But one of them gave me weird vibes from the very beginning. Something about him just felt off. I tried to brush it off thinking that maybe he was just awkward or shy. I didn't want to judge too quickly. So I stayed friendly but kept my distance. Still, the red flags kept stacking up. Every morning when I got ready and did my makeup at the little vanity table, he would just stand behind me, staring silently through the mirror. Not saying anything. Just watch me. When I asked if he needed something, he'd always say, no, and keep watching until I got visibly uncomfortable and irritated. He also kept asking me when I planned to shower, even though we had shared but separate bathrooms with stalls. No reason he should be concerned about my schedule. He'd always ask what I was doing each day and wanted to hang out constantly. I politely declined every time. Then one day I randomly ran into him at a subway station nowhere near the hostel. I had just visited Deoksagung Palace and when I was about to head back, there he was. I played it off, but it made me uneasy because what were the odds? I kept telling myself I was just being paranoid. I didn't want to cause drama and honestly, I was still dumb and trusting back then. But my last morning was the last straw for me. I woke up early, still half asleep, and drifted back to sleep. The next time I opened my eyes, he was sitting by my bedside, leaning over me, stroking my face and my shoulder. I shot up immediately and was like, "What the hell are you doing?" He didn't give me a real answer but just mumbled something vague. I felt sick to my stomach. I got up, packed my things, and told him I was checking out. He kept following me around the room, trying to make conversation like nothing had happened. I dropped the friendly act completely and started snapping at him, asking if he wasn't going to pack too, reminding him that his flight wasn't until way later. And then he said, "I really like you." I told him that was inappropriate, considering we'd only known each other for 5 days. He replied, "Sometimes you just know." He kept saying he wanted to meet again, maybe in Europe someday, we were both European, and tried to get my number. I refused. He pushed. Eventually, I gave it to him just to get him to back off, knowing I'd block him anyway. Nothing, technically, happened, I guess. But I still felt disgusted. And I was furious at myself for being polite for so long. But at the same time, being too firm might have triggered something worse. He felt unpredictable. That was the first and last time I ever stayed in a mixed dorm. I've stayed in female-only dorms ever since, and I've never had an experience like that again, thankfully. Story 14. Not that big of a deal, but still gonna tell the story. When I was like 12, I sometimes took the subway to go back home from school. I've always had the habit of being really careful of my surroundings, in general. This time, I noticed someone mid-50s, tall, didn't seem sober, staring right at me. Being the naive 12-year-old I was, I smiled a little and looked away. But when I got out of the subway, I noticed he got out too, and I felt like he was following me. I decided to stop at a corner, because he didn't seem aggressive, and to let him pass in front of me, which he did. Next thing you know, he was back behind me, probably did the same thing as me. I didn't think that much of it as he just stopped following me at one point on my way home. Fast forward a few weeks, subway again. The moment I step into the train, I feel weird, like there's something wrong, and I notice the same guy, still looking high, and still looking straight at me. This time I knew something was off, but I was just too scared to publicly yell at him, even though I probably should have. I got out of the subway, and same thing, he was right behind me. Not even discreet, like he was following me closely, I'd say 10 meters away. This time, I felt like he wanted more. And he probably did. So I didn't get close to him to let him pass like last time, I just accelerated and went straight to the bar next to my place. It's a small bar. My parents know the owner, a really kind old guy. I told him I was being followed, and he offered me 2 choices, either he offers me a soda, and I wait it out, he'll get bored of waiting outside eventually, that's what I did, or he went outside with a baseball bat. To be honest, that was the right choice, but I didn't want any other trouble, and I was already terrified. So I just stayed inside, called my mom, and explained everything. And being in a bar at 18:30 in winter, obviously, some guy tries something. See, I was a small guy, young, and to be honest, I looked harmless. So that other guy just asks me if I have a girlfriend, and I say yes. He then asks if I love her, and I say yes. And then out of nowhere he asks if I'd like to try anal, and I don't know what to say. I just stayed there, bamboozled by what I had just heard. Then something clicks, and I realize that even though I was young, I was not a small kid anymore. So I decided to slap him and go home, after checking that the other guy had left. So yeah, that's it basically, 2 creepy dudes hitting up on a 12-year-old kid who just wants to go home and play Red Dead or something. To this day I'm still scared of the subway and I avoid taking it, mainly because of those guys. Story 15. Creepy non-paranormal cemetery story. I think about this one all the time. This is the perfect place to share. My childhood neighborhood is next to a cemetery. All of the houses on the right side have their backyards, but they all back up to the cemetery. At the time, I was in middle school, and my sister in elementary. My sister was friends with 2 little girls down the street who lived on the right side, so they were close to the cemetery. My sister's friend, let's call her Emma, started getting presents from a man in the neighborhood. He would give her flowers, little stuffed teddy bears, and dolls. One day Emma's dad got suspicious about all the gifts and asked which neighbor had been giving her things, and she said it was the man who visits the back fence. Her father called the police and they found that a man had been squatting in the mausoleum and seemingly he was taking items from graves to give to the little girl. I'm not sure about what happened to the man, but my parents still live in that neighborhood and I think about that story whenever I see that cemetery and wonder what would have happened to Emma if her dad hadn't called the police. I wish that they still lived there so I could ask. This happened about 25 years ago.